Does fentanyl just affect the user or the entire family? In this episode, we'll talk about how fentanyl affects the whole family. Have a seat and join us for this interesting and informative conversation about the use of fentanyl and how it affects the whole family. So welcome back to Facing the Fentanyl Crisis. My name is Dr. Jennifer Sankey Battles, and I'm the Director of Health and Possibilities at the Southeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Pastor Hall and I are having a conversation today about how fentanyl affects the family. Welcome, Pastor Hall.
Hey, I'm glad to be back with you on episode number 2. And Dr. Sankey, before we get into this conversation, I'd like to say to those that are viewing, we want to put a disclaimer out here that we are not medical doctors. And so if there is a problem, you would need to see a professional counselor. We say not medical doctor, but if you need to see a counselor or some clinician to address the issue of addiction, then you would definitely need to do that. But I'm delighted to be back with you as we talk about a very difficult topic of the fentanyl crisis and addiction that we're seeing happening in this country right now. It is indeed a crisis. It's an addiction problem that is not going away anytime soon. And I believe that the church must be a voice in addressing this issue of this crisis. Not only a voice, but looking at prevention and looking at education, which means that we've got to get into our schools, we've got to get into our churches, we need to reach into our communities, and wherever there is a voice and wherever we can have a voice in the community, we've definitely got to do that. So I'm delighted to be with you in this segment.
I'm glad you're here. We really are here to really not only educate, but we want to promote prevention. And not only prevention, but if we know of individuals, family members, co-workers, neighbors who may be struggling with this problem, we want to really let them know that there is help. There are resources that we will talk about later, Pastor Hall, regarding how to get treatment for this crisis or even for the addiction, and then also about rescue medications when someone has overdosed. But today we really want to spend time talking about the effect of fentanyl on the entire family. Now, many times think it's just a user, the individual who's using it, that they're the ones that's affected. But what we do know is that the entire family is affected when someone has an addiction.
Absolutely.
And I want to start out by saying it disrupts the family. Pastor Hall, it disrupts the routine of the family. It really does. I mean, when I think about individuals that I know who maybe have used alcohol or any type of drug, it does cause a disruption. You know, you're trying to get ready for a vacation, get ready for church, get ready to go somewhere, and they may be looking for the next hit.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the problem with addiction, and we're looking at fentanyl, which is a serious drug. You mentioned in our last segment that fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine. Think about that. So when a person gets up every morning that's on this drug, clearly what they are looking at, they're looking at wanting to get high. They're looking for, again, you mentioned earlier that euphoria, that the mood swings that they go through, but trying to get to that next level of high. And so their focus is not on family unity and all of the dynamics of the family, but it's on getting high and getting that feeling for another day and the next day and then when the next week comes. So their focus is on that. So that's going to mean the money, which we will get into, the monetary, financial aspects. But yeah, it is a disruption to the family.
Absolutely. And you know, when you love someone and you see them going and struggling with an addiction, and you see how it affects their whole mental and physical and spiritual relationship, because it does affect that, it is difficult to see someone you love to experience that. I mean, it's hard. I mean, mothers and fathers, they want to jump into action and help. But I can tell you that it also causes conflict.
Absolutely.
Because when it causes conflict, if one parent is trying to help and the other one saying, no, don't help. Let's show tough love.
Absolutely.
You know, let's not give that money this time because we know how they're going to use it. So it causes conflict in the family and even mistrust. I mean, I know of individuals who their spouses were users, and when they would come home, things would be missing. It had been pawned, whether it was a bicycle or some jewelry or anything like that. So that means that now you can't trust your valuables in your home,
Absolutely.
which should be a safe place.
Absolutely. And I can identify with that in a personal way because I can remember when my nephew was definitely strung out on drugs. There were items that eventually came up missing. There were items taken from his grandfather, one or two items that were left, and other different things even from his own mom. So a drug addict has no loyalties because their realities are, I need that next high. And if I don't have the money and I'm not working to get that next high, then I've got to find the money from somewhere because the drug dealers are not going to give me these drugs free. It's at a price. And so they will look anywhere to find money. So what's the closest place? They look around the home, and whatever they can find that's of value in the home, they're going to find that, and they're going to take it out there and pawn it, or they're going to take it out there and sell it to get that next high. And with fentanyl being so addictive and so strong, and the drive, I mean, it's a drive. They're going to steal over and over and over again from family members. And it becomes a disruption within the family because now you've got to secure valuable items that you have in the home, because if you don't secure them, they're going to come up missing. And then the drug addict is not going to tell you where those items are because they are so busy now looking for more money to find that next high that they want to get into.
You know, and we really do sympathize with individuals who may be watching this program who have loved ones who are going through an addiction, because addiction is a disease, meaning that there's a dis-ease that causes that individual to want to escape reality.
Right.
It's almost like if someone has hypertension or if they have diabetes or high cholesterol, you know, they go to the doctor, those things are measurable.
Right.
But when you have that addiction that you're looking for something, you cannot measure what's going on in someone's head. And it does affect the family in such a way that it can cause conflict, mistrust, as I mentioned, things may come up missing.
Right.
And you have to be delicate about if it's missing, because they could say, oh, you just misplaced that.
Exactly
you don't remember where you put it.
Right.
And so now it's turned on you that you're the one that has, you know, maybe poor memory, you know, and that they are not the ones who maybe have taken it. And so I think it really, I'm going to use the word again, it disrupts the family.
It does.
It really does. And we talked about the importance of trying to help connect these people to Christ. Because we know, listen, in John 10:10, the devil comes to steal,
and to
kill, and destroy families with this crisis. You know, but the good news is Jesus says, I've come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. So when we talk about this fentanyl crisis, we're not hopeless. We believe with Christ that we can help connect these individuals and give them some hope. And so I think that the family has to look beyond the crisis to Christ.
Absolutely.
During these difficult times.
Absolutely.
And so yes, and you know, the other thing it does is not only conflict and mistrust, but communication breakdown.
And one of those areas of communication can be where that person might be hiding this addiction from a family member, but the family member realizes that there have been some serious mood swings, there have been some other issues, some highs and some lows that we've seen, personality changes in my husband, my wife, and so they know that something is definitely wrong here. The communication that they once enjoyed, that communication now is gone. And so they're hiding things, they're not being truthful, they're lying to their spouse, if it's a husband and wife situation. So yeah, there can be a serious disruption in communication.
Right.
And we sometimes look at the children, but it can get even more serious when we're talking about an addiction where a husband is addicted or a wife is addicted. And so that can really disrupt the family, and especially if there are children in that home. And we are seeing where fentanyl now definitely is impacting not only the younger generation, but it's impacting those who are husbands, those who are wives, and in some cases we even see grandparents where it's impacting them as well. So the whole family dynamics is broken up and interfered with, and that's a trick and a ploy of the devil, because the family unit is a critical unit that helps hold society together. And if the enemy can find a way to begin to pull apart the family unit, then he's done great damage to our society. And look at our nation right now. He's done great damage to our nation as well.
Absolutely.
When we look at the moral decline that we're seeing, a lot of it goes right back to the family unit. Yeah.
You know, and I think the communication that won't break down, or we should never ever let break down, is prayer.
Absolutely.
Prayer is critical.
Absolutely.
Because there will be some situations that we cannot do anything about. It's only through the prayer and fasting that we'll be able to take it to the Lord in prayer, because we will not be able to change that individual's behavior. We will not be able to tell them stop, you know, because it's a disease. You know, stop going after that, you know, whether it's fentanyl or marijuana or alcohol. All of those are things that are so addictive.
Absolutely.
That if the person doesn't have it, because it's such a compulsion,
Absolutely.
they feel like they're going to die. I
Right.
mean, they literally crave it so much that they feel like, if I don't get it, what's going to happen to me? And so I think for us, we must keep the communication with God,
Right.
praying for them, communicating with them, I love you, I care for you, I want to see the best for you. Those are phrases that people understand. And what I do know is some of the addictions, or the causes of addictions, are many times stress, trauma, our environment. And so we go back and try to reverse it back and say, let me show love, let me show kindness, let me show patience. You know, it can be frustrating to
Right.
see that happening.
Right.
That they say, I'm going to stop, and then next week they're back doing it again, or the next day. But I think because if we pattern our lives or our approach after Christ's approach, that will be probably more successful than if we try to do it in our own strength.
Very good point. Doctor, let me ask another question though, and that is, it's no doubt that addiction causes stress on the family. So how can a family member or members get support where they have a family member that's very addicted to drugs? And I say very addicted to drugs. What are some of the avenues of support that they can get? Is there any kind of support in the church that you would think? Is there any kind of other support that a family member can get as they're going through this addiction crisis with their family member who is addicted? They're not addicted, but their family member is addicted, and they need to get help because it's clearly a stress on the family. What kind of help do you think they can get?
So, you know, that's a really good question, Pastor Hall. It's important that they get help for themselves. Because after a while it could wear them down. So it's important that they find, and there's support groups out there for families.
Absolutely.
I actually went through the Journey to Wholeness program, and one of the things that they recommended that I do is go to a support group for Alcohol Anonymous.
Okay.
And I went a couple of weeks ago. It was an amazing experience. When I say amazing, the room probably had like 25 people in there. And they all would go around the room and introduce themselves. You know, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm an alcoholic. And many of those people there had been there maybe even a month, some a year, some
Right.
5 years, some 10 years. They just
Right.
continued to come.
Right.
As we were leaving the meeting, one of the participants said to me, you really need to come back on Thursday night. You really need to go to the family support group and see what happens there. So I thought, okay, that could be part of my understanding it better.
Right.
So I went to the family support group that Thursday night. There were families there. They're not alcoholics, but they were there to get support from other people of how to deal with their children, their grandchildren, their frustration, things missing, all the disruption to the family. And when I sat there, I thought, this is great, because families they're affected by it.
Absolutely.
And so, again, it allowed me to better understand that families need support. So online, or you could probably research it or Google it, you can find support groups for families of people who are addicted. You can find even support groups. And I like what you said about how can we as a church provide that support. But in the meantime, it may require you going to an outside agency to get that support. And for me, it was to learn how to provide support or how to create a support group within the church. So, that's a very good question. And we want to explore that a little bit more about resources when we come back. So I'm going to ask you, don't change the channel, don't stop watching. When we come back, we're going to talk about the available resources that you as a family member, a church member, or a pastor can actually tap into that has shown to be successful. And that's why Alcohol Anonymous is successful, because they treat the one who has the addiction and they support and surround the family who are also there in the home. So those addiction recovery programs are care for the caregivers.
I like that. So there's help in the community.
Absolutely, there is. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome. We're so happy that you have joined us now for part 2 of episode 2, where we have been talking about the impact of fentanyl upon the family. And there was some great information that was shared with Dr. Sankey and I in the first episode, the first portion. And so, Dr. Sankey, we're so delighted to now continue this discussion concerning the family and the impact of fentanyl upon the family. But during the last segment, we were talking about how the family can be supported. But there was something that came to mind, and that is, what about those families that have already lost a loved one? I mean, I'm quite sure we're speaking to individuals out there, and we're listening, others are listening, and they've lost a family member to fentanyl or some other drug. What kind of support is there for someone that has already lost a family member to fentanyl or some of these other dangerous drugs that's out there?
Pastor Hall, that's a really, really good question. When you lose a loved one, whether it's to fentanyl or to alcohol, there's oftentimes those questions that go through your mind. Did I do enough? Did I say the right thing? Did I recognize it early enough? So there's sometimes people begin to blame themselves, family members, friends, about what happened regarding the loss. So this is a real serious thing. And so we do know that there is a grief share out there. We do know there are grief support groups, not only within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but they're in the community.
Right.
And so I would say to those individuals, reach out and get counseling. Because you don't want to carry that on your own. Right. Because many times these same family members have been the ones who have put boundaries and said, okay, you can do this, but not in my house, you won't be able to do that. And so they've done what they can. They have secured their valuables. They've prayed for that child. They prayed for that husband. Right. And sometimes it still leads down to the passing of someone who is, from addiction. And so I think the first thing is recognize that addiction is a disease. Recognize that when you pray for that individual, God hears. And recognize that if their life is not spared, it's not because you did anything to cause it to, for their demise. Right. So again, I think the biggest thing is release yourself of that guilt and then search for some type of counseling from a professional. It's good to talk to family and friends because that just allows you to share how you're feeling. They may have known the individual as well. Right. So that's important. But I would say it's most important that you don't put it on yourself that there's anything that you have done wrong. If you didn't recognize it, you didn't know they were on it, God will not hold you accountable for that.
Absolutely. Very good point. Because again, I think that the family clearly has lost a loved one. I mean, there's something about death and the finality of death. And the kind of impact and this whole issue of guilt is what too many deal with. And so I am happy to know that there is some support out there through these grief support groups that says to a family member that's lost another family member, whether it's to drugs or anything else, get the help.
Yes.
Come together with others and discuss how that grief, that loss is impacting you. And it's healthier for you in the long run as far as your mental health is concerned.
And not only the mental health, but the physical health.
Absolutely.
Because we do know what happens in the mind translates into the body. They're integrated.
Absolutely.
And so carrying grief for prolonged periods of time or high levels of stress for prolonged periods of time can lead to physical diseases, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol. Some cancers have even been linked to high levels of stress and prolonged grief.
Absolutely.
So we really don't want to allow our minds to be affected by something that maybe we didn't have any control over whatsoever.
Absolutely.
You know, but what I would say is we do know that this addiction affects the entire family. But there are times that it is our responsibility to put boundaries, healthy boundaries around those individuals. I know when I was growing up, you know, there were some things that my dad said would not happen in his house. And we weren't doing drugs or anything like that.
That's right.
You know, but again, because he felt like he was the gatekeeper, the owner, the house belonged to the Lord, there were some things that were not allowed in his home. And I think that parents don't need to feel like they're helpless.
Okay.
That they don't need to do anything because they love them so much. It's good to have healthy boundaries and a communication, a conversation with that individual, what is allowed and what is not allowed in the home.
Doc, let me ask you a question, and I know that, you know, for some family members, mom and dad, this gets to be a little touchy, but what if they find out that a family member is using drugs and definitely fentanyl, and they set up those boundaries and that son or daughter does not adhere to those boundaries? Give me your thoughts on maybe what the parent would do in that case. Do you think they would offer some suggestion to them to say, look, if you're going to continue to stay in this house, you're going to definitely need to get help. You're going to need to go to a professional. You're going to need to get professional counseling. You're going to need to have some other different entities where the mom and dad, in other words, they set up, like you said, boundaries, and they set up some rules and regulations to help get them through this situation and give them the support. You think that's something that a family member should do?
Well, certainly. I think one of the things that families can do, not only provide support and give them resources, but offer to go with them.
Okay.
You know, to go with them to sit in those support groups.
Good.
I'll go with you. And really speak it from a perspective of love. I love you. I want you to the best for you. If they have children, I want the best for your children. We want you to be around. So the language of love speaks volumes.
I love that.
And so it's important that we remain constant and consistent in our response. Yes, if you will continue to use, then you're no longer allowed to stay here. Why? Because again, we know with illegal drugs especially, you know, the police or the official, you know, they can come to your home and wherever it is, you are at risk. And so you don't want to put yourself at risk trying to protect a child who will not abide by the rules of the home. But love and compassion is always what you want. And if a person takes the next step to go to recovery, be patient. Because they may go along for 6 months, but they may revert back and relapse. And we don't want to be critical at that time. We want to maybe understand what was the trigger. What was that trigger that caused the individual to go back and start using again? Because as you mentioned, many times they feel isolated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many times they withdraw.
Absolutely.
So they're not around the support system that they would have. So be patient.
Okay.
Be patient, because there's going to be some ups and downs.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be all, it's going to take time. They say if you get past 5 years, generally you're okay. So those first 5 years can be really tough.
Absolutely.
And learning how to cope with stressors can be tough if they have not learned that before. Yeah.
So, talking about support, which we looked at earlier for the family, looking at support for the individuals that's addicted. One of the things I've thought about, and I've heard this mentioned over and over again through my years of ministry, that for a person that's addicted, I was listening to a conversation about a person that maybe was an alcoholic, and they could, if need be, if that desire was there at any time, and that craving as they were trying to overcome it, they could pick up the phone even if it's the wee hours of the morning and call an individual that was like a mentor to them, like a big brother or a big sister to them. They could call that person, and that person would immediately, if they were close enough, come over, or they would stay on the phone with them to help them be prayed through or walk through that situation. I believe that's another area that too often those who are addicted, that they miss out on, and that is having a person who's like a mentor, or one who will give you the support that you need. That person might have been addicted themselves to drugs, and they've overcome, and they have, been maybe had that sobriety or that period where they've not used that drug for a number of years. So they understand all the cravings, and they understand all of the intricacies of dealing with that drug and all of the stages. So I think that person becomes a critical support person for one who is on drugs. As we talk about, again, the resources and the support that a person on drugs is going to need.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that we have to keep in mind is that we're in this warfare, this spiritual warfare, and we have to realize that what Satan's doing is disconnecting people when they are addicted, right? And so our goal, supporting as a family, as a parent, as a grandparent, is our goal is to try to reconnect them to Christ. Because really the struggle is really between them trusting and loving the Lord and their addiction. So they're loving that addiction more than they love themselves, than they love their families. But I think what we continue to remind them that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, and you call that individual by name, because whether it's an addiction to whatever it is, alcohol or drugs or tobacco, it is separating us from God. And so when we think about the love of God, our job is really to see how we can reconnect them. Even if it means saying to them, do you mind if I pray with you? Let me pray with you before you leave home. Let me cover you. Let me, again, speaking in the language of how God speaks to us, to try to bring them back to themselves. That I mentioned about going to the family meeting, and as I was leaving, one of the ladies said, she said, my family did all they could for me. They gave me everything. They wanted me to stop. She said, but I just, when I came to myself, almost like the prodigal son, when I came to myself and realized that my need was for God, that is when I realized I needed to seek help. And so she said that it was the only thing. She said, my family wanted me to stop, but it was only until I recognized that need for God. And so it really is a warfare.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is.
Yes.
It is. And it's a spiritual warfare that continues day in and day out. And that's why, again, the church must have a voice in this whole struggle and fight against addiction, because it's something that the devil has launched as a major attack even against the church itself. Because again, the family unit that we've been talking about here, the enemy realizes that if I can dismantle the family unit, then I can dismantle our communities, I can dismantle our nation, and in fact I can have an impact even upon the global community. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So that's why I believe that what you're doing, Dr. Sankey, with preparing now to form support groups within our church across this conference, I believe it's something admirable that must be done. And I'm hoping that our churches, that our pastors will feel the need, and our other health ministries leaders and others within our local churches, that they will feel the need to pull together these support groups, because it's something that's going to be critical as we move forward into the future.
Absolutely. And there's actually the Bree Seventh Adventist Church down in Miami. The beginning of August of this year, they actually launched a community health addiction recovery program.
Good.
They're focusing on alcohol and tobacco and drugs, and also social media. And they're also focusing on food addictions.
Absolutely.
So they have started, they've been very intentional, very focused. And I'm very proud that all of their facilitators have taken the online Journey to Wholeness program that's offered by the North American Division. I got a call last week from an individual up in Tallahassee, Brother Hall. And he says, I'm interested in this, I'm passionate about it. I've taken the online course. I want to start something here in the Tallahassee church.
Good.
And you're the one that connected me with him. And again, so we have two churches that I know of in Southeastern Conference, maybe more, who are really saying this is a problem. We are concerned. We want our voice to be heard. We want to reconnect people to Christ. We want a solution to this crisis. And so I'm very happy to know that you and I are having this conversation, because maybe it will inspire and motivate other churches to also do the same. Because what we do know is, so even though someone is addicted, there is a high chance that they will recover from that addiction. We know that it happens. We know that it can be sustained. We know that our job is to help people recover.
Absolutely.
Very much like when Jesus came on earth to rescue us, our job is to continue to rescue people, rescue the perishing, pray for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save.
Absolutely.
So our job is to help to save them, but our goal is to help walk side by side with them, Pastor Hall, and really support them on the journey, because the family alone can't do that. It can be, but the church body can also, because the church body is part of the family too.
Absolutely, that's right.
That's the family of God.
Family of God.
And we
Absolutely.
want to make sure that we support them on the journey.
Right.
Any other final thoughts about how this addiction is affecting the family and what resources are available, Pastor Hall?
Well, I love the way that you have begin to focus and narrow this down, that it comes back to Christ, because any addiction, no matter how strong that addiction is, there's no addiction that is more powerful than Jesus Christ, our Savior. He is the great physician. The fentanyl crisis, this addiction is a disease.
That's right.
But Jesus is the master healer. He's the master physician, the master doctor. Yes, I believe that we must go to all of these other healthcare individuals, these clinicians that addresses this issue of drug addiction. But ultimately, if a person gives their lives over to God and get all the help that they can get from man, but ultimately it comes back down to man connecting with God. And as man connects with God, then God is the ultimate healer to heal these bodies of ours and these minds of ours away from those cravings and help us to become whole again. Because at the end of the day, it's about making man whole again. And so that's what God wants to do. The enemy is trying to destroy through drugs, but God's desire is to make man whole again. And we can be made whole again. And anyone that's on addiction or addictive drugs can be made whole again through Jesus Christ.
Amen. I would encourage us. There's a book we know of, Steps to Christ, and many of us have read it. But I would encourage anyone that has a family member, or maybe you're struggling yourself with an addiction, to read Steps to Christ by Ellen G. White. There's a recovery edition, but even just the edition that they put out originally is still very good, because it talks about man's need for Christ.
Absolutely.
And so once we recognize our need for Christ, then that limits and diminishes our need for anything other than Christ. I want to say thank you so much for joining us on Facing the Fentanyl Addiction Crisis. And I invite you to join us for the next episode. Going to be very important information about, again, we'll talk about how do families cope with addiction.
And thank you again for joining us. This has been a second episode of definitely fentanyl close to home. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on future episodes.